Hi, I'm Lisa Filia, your confidence coach for your career. Let's talk about punishment. And I bring this up because a lot of times my clients will tell me about how they often beat themselves up in their heads. I've been there as well. And so, what I want to offer is this video, to talk about why this doesn't work and how we can approach it in a more helpful way. Sometimes even just knowing why it doesn't work can help us to stop doing it as well. So even by listening to this and kind of understanding that, it can help that way. And also, if you want to dive in deeper to this concept, I will let you know at the end of this video how you can sign up for a free call with me so we can chat a little bit more about what you're looking for. Okay, so why doesn't punishment work? And here we're talking about self punishment. And for us to do that, it helps to look at some of the research. So I have a master's in psychology, and as a part of that, you look over a lot of studies and research about different concepts. And one of them is around this idea of reward and punishment. And the idea here is that when you punish somebody, so that's like saying bad or you shouldn't do that, what that does is it just tells the person what you don't want them to do. It doesn't give them any direction on what you do want them to do. So you have a child, or a parent has a child, and they say, you shouldn't do that. Don't do that anymore. They think, okay, then what do I do? It doesn't tell them any helpful information other than to not do that. And sure, if you get enough punishment, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, you eventually like meander your way into figuring out what you want them to do. So in that way, it can help. But it isn't very fast acting in that way. It also can have the opposite effect. So I think about this a lot with my dog. If I tell my dog, good boy, and I say it in that voice, he knows that's like a reward. He's done something good. And so if I tell him bad or don't do that or no, he knows not to do something, but it doesn't really tell him what I want him to do instead. And so what can happen is when you use reward and punishment, the punishment side, when not done in an effective way, when not done in a constructive way, can actually have the opposite effect. So for example, with my dog, if he does something that he usually gets rewarded for, like he sits when he hears another dog bark, he'll sit by me in the office so that he doesn't bark. Sometimes I don't catch it though. I'm in my own world, or I'm really working on something, and so I don't notice it, and so I don't give him a treat or say good boy. But he's sitting there and he knows that he usually gets rewarded. But if I'm not acknowledging it, then what he'll do is he'll start woof, woof. And if I still don't hear it, he'll go bigger and he'll full on bark because he knows he's not supposed to bark. So, at least constantly when people are coming, he knows he's not supposed to do that. But he also knows that when he does that, he gets my attention because I usually say no. So he knows that while it's not the behavior he's supposed to do, it gives him attention, which is what he's after. And so he'll do it knowing that. So the other thing with punishment, we've talked about how it doesn't give you direction. We've talked about how when you punish, you still give attention to that thing. So it doesn't always get you what you want. And then the third piece is the emotional response that it creates. So when you punish somebody, they have thoughts about that punishment that often make them feel bad. And so even if in that short-term moment you get the reaction that you're wanting or the behavior that you're wanting from them, you probably didn't do it in the way you wanted. And it doesn't make them feel very good about it in the end. So what we want to do then is think about this from our own state and our own brains, because often we are punishing ourselves in our head without even realizing it. We're telling ourselves, bad, you shouldn't do that. What were you thinking? How could you? And we're saying these phrases that are basically punishment to try to get us to behave in a more helpful way. But like we just talked about, the problems with punishment, it doesn't have the result we want because one, it creates a lot of attention on the unwanted behavior. So we're so focused on what not to do that we often miss what can help or what we want to do instead because we're so focused on the wrong or the problem. We miss the opportunity to explore if anything did work and what that thing could be. So, how can we help ourselves then instead of punishing ourselves? How can we approach setbacks and things that don't go as we wanted them to in a more helpful way? Well, instead of punishment, we can use feedback. And what this is constructive feedback. And so I'm not saying you never say, hey, you messed up, but I'm saying it's you don't do it in the form of a punishment. You do it in the form of an evaluative process that helps you. So the way I recommend doing this is through 3 questions. And these are questions I learned from my coach, Stacey Bayman. And I have used them for myself when coaching and in other aspects in situations that I do. And it's really helped me out. So the first question is, what worked? What worked? We start here because as soon as we go to the part that didn't work, that's all our brain wants to focus on. So we want to start with what worked. We want to ask this because even if you didn't get the outcome you wanted, if you only focus there, you miss the little things that you might have done that actually were still helpful. So you ask what worked and you get specific about it so you know exactly what it was. It wasn't, I showed up on time. That's what worked. It's, I went to this location and I scheduled at this time and that fit in well with my schedule and I was doing these other things. So whatever it is, you want to get really specific about what worked. Once you have that, then it's what didn't work. You do this from a place of observation, not judgment. So it's like if you were separating yourself from it and watching yourself on TV and evaluating that without any reaction in terms of a judgment about good or bad, or like trying to define who that person is from it. You were just saying, oh, this worked and this didn't. That's what you think about. So with what didn't work, what were those things? And again, get specific. The third question is, what would I do differently? And we go here third because you do what worked. That tells you things to keep. What didn't work tells you things not to keep. If with what often happens is people just focus here, so they lose these. So by asking what would you do differently third, you can take both these into calculation and kind of triangulate and just land on the things you'll change. So those are the 3 questions, and that's how you can use feedback instead of punishment to help yourself move forward. And so then the next time you notice you might be judging yourself or blaming yourself or self-critiquing in a hateful way or an unhelpful way, in a punishing type of way, take a step back and say, wait, this isn't helpful. We know why it's not helpful. We just talked about it. So then let's ask those questions instead. So if you want to talk about how to use this with your life more specifically and really get into how to evaluate how you're showing up for yourself, what you want to keep doing, and how to tweak it in a way to get you to the results that you're wanting to, talking with a coach can help because it gets you out of your own headspace and your own emotional state that comes often with what we're doing and allows you to take on a more objective perspective. Using a coach will do that for you. And the first step to working with a coach, and that coach being me, is to get on the phone with me. It's a 60-minute consultation call. We dive into your brain. We talk about what's working for you, what isn't working for you, and what to do differently to help bridge that gap. In this process, no matter whether the coaching program ends up being the right fit for you or not, by going on this call and going through this process, you will learn about yourself and leave with some great takeaways that you can apply to your life to get yourself closer to where you're wanting to go. To sign up for that call, you just go to my website at www.lisaphilia.com/schedule. That's LISAPHILIAW.com/schedule. All right, I'll see you on the call. And until then, have a great one. Bye.